10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 48. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 48 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. My name is Nick Manella, and I am the creator and host of the show, where we try to give you a short and concise jazz lesson every single week, complete with downloadable PDFs, which you can find at our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com. Really good news this week. I finally got somebody who knows what they're doing to check out our membership site. So our Inner Circle membership is back up and running, and this is a fantastic membership that you can join every single month that will give you a lot of benefits that will make you a much better player, and it will help you to support this podcast, which you know and love. So make sure you go to our website, click on the Inner Circle tab, and check out all of the amazing stuff that you get for only $5 a month. You really can't beat it. We had that trouble for the past couple weeks, but we are back up and running. So sign up today. We'd really appreciate it. You will be responsible for keeping the podcast up and running. If this is something that you listen to every week, please consider joining. It's really not that much money every month, and you still get the free episodes of the podcast, plus you get all the fantastic materials that the Inner Circle membership entitles you to, including a transcription, a ready-made vocabulary list, a lead sheet of the tune that I've transcribed in all common keys so that you can go out and play them with your band or practice them at home. Analysis, you get 20% off in our store, and also 10% of your fee every month will be donated to the National Association of Music Educators, which is obviously really important to us because we are an educational organization, so we want to see part of your support go to them for all the fantastic things they do for music education in America. So please go sign up. We'd really, really appreciate it. Again, it's only $5 a month, less than a nice cup of coffee. I know I'm beating that to death, but it's really, you barely even miss it, and all the benefits you get will far outweigh the cost. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So today we're going to talk about the altered scale. This is a really, really important concept for playing a little bit more advanced material and quote-unquote playing out. We all hear our favorite musicians play notes with a lot of tension to them. We've talked about the diminished dominant. This is a little bit different than that. This is what we call the altered scale, but it's another really great thing that you can use mainly over dominant chords that will give you all the tension notes and really give you a little bit more of that advanced kind of out sound. So we're going to do a two-part series on this. The first one is going to be talking about where exactly the altered scale comes from and showing you some basic scale patterns that you can start to work into your playing. And then next week, we're going to talk a little bit more advanced. We're going to talk about some of the triads that you can form using the altered scale. So if this is something that's new to you, this episode will be great. You'll figure out where the altered scale comes from, how to use it on a basic level, and then next week we're going to get into a little bit more of the advanced stuff. So what is the altered scale? Let's start by talking about that. So the altered scale comes from the 7th degree of a melodic minor scale, and we're going to superimpose that scale over a different dominant chord. So the one that we're going to use on the example sheet this week, and you might want to have this in front of you while I'm explaining it to you so that you understand what I'm talking about and have the real-life examples in front of you. Basically, we're going to use a G7 dominant chord, and we're going to explain how to make it altered. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take an A-flat melodic minor scale, and we're going to start on the 7th degree of that scale. So the 7th degree of an A-flat melodic minor scale is G. Then we're going to play up the A-flat melodic minor scale starting on G. So I guess we should talk about what a melodic minor scale is first in case you're not familiar with that. So melodic minor scale is basically a major scale with the third flatted. All right, so if you take an A-flat major scale and you flat the third, you get, instead of a C being the third, you get a B. Or if you want to get really technical, a C flat. But we're going to call it a B just because I think that's much easier to comprehend rather than a C flat. So if we take an A flat major scale, we flat the third, it becomes a B, and the rest of the scale stays exactly the same. Now, sometimes when we play melodic minors, they're different on the way up than they are on the way down. That's actually kind of the definition of a melodic minor scale. But for our purposes, we're going to keep it the same going up and going down. So all we're changing is that third. Let me play an A flat melodic minor scale for you just right off the bat so you can get that sound in your head. Now, I should also mention, I always forget to do this, that when I say A flat, I'm talking about in my key for the tenor saxophone. So this is actually a concert G flat. But, on the sheet, I have it written out in A flat. So you are going to be looking at it in A flat in whatever key your instrument is, right off the bat. So I feel like I should just mention that, though, so some of you go, no, that's actually a concert G flat. You're right, it is, but I'm playing tenor saxophone, so I'm speaking in the key of B flat just for my own purposes, to show you these exercises. You should be practicing them in every key anyways, so in the end, it won't really matter. You'll be getting all the keys under your belt. Okay, so now what we do is we're going to play that same scale, but we're going to play it over a G7 chord, and we're going to start that melodic minor scale on the 7th degree. So we're going to play that same scale, but we're going to start it on G, which is going to be the root of our dominant chord. And this is exercise number 2 on your sheet. So check out what this sounds like. I'm going to play the chord on piano, and then I'm going to play the altered scale. That's what this is called when we start that melodic minor on the 7th degree. Now, all of a sudden, we can call it a G altered scale. So here's what that sounds like, just to get it in your ears before I talk a little bit more about it. All right, so you can hear that it's a pretty tension-filled scale, and that's pretty much the reason why they call it the altered scale, is because we're altering basically every single note in the scale to provide us with that tension. So if you look at it, as soon as we start on the 7th of the melodic minor scale, we obviously have 1 over G. Then we have flat 9, sharp 9, 3, sharp 11, flat 13, 7, 1. So if you look at that flat 9, sharp 9, the sharp 11, and the flat 13, those are our tension notes. And those are the notes that really make the altered scale sound very, very cool. So we want to get used to the sound of these notes. Now you'll notice it's sort of similar to that diminished dominant scale, but we've got a flat 13. And we don't have the 5 in this scale. We're completely skipping over the 5, and we're just going straight from the sharp 11 to the flat 13. So this is basically what altered is. Now, if you see this on a lead sheet, you might see the term G7 alt on your lead sheet. That's what this means. That means altered. So you can flat the 9, sharp the 9, sharp the 11, flat the 13, or you can think about that melodic minor starting on the 7th. However you want to think about it is totally fine, whatever works for you. Now, here's another sort of caveat when you see this. Sometimes you'll see G7 sharp 9. That also implies altered. That's different than when we see G7 flat 9, which is implying diminished dominant. When we see the sharp 9, what that's really telling us is we want to use this altered scale, which is, of course, a little bit different than the diminished dominant. So if you haven't listened to the diminished dominant episodes, make sure you go back and discover what that's all about so you can hear the difference between the two. All right, so the rest of the sheet this week is going to be just some simple 5-to-1 progressions using the altered scale. and then resolving to either a major or a minor chord. So let me play through those exercises real quick. These are simple scale exercises that are meant to just get you into it before we get a little bit more advanced next week. So here are exercises 3, 4, and 5 on your PDF from this week. Really listen to the tension and then the release. So there you have it. Those are the exercises on your sheet this week. They'll give you a little introduction to playing over the altered scale, playing over a dominant altered chord. Make sure you send me any questions that you might have, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. And next week we're going to get into some really, really cool sounds using triads out of that scale, actually over the dominant chord, which are going to give us a greater sense of tension and release and give us a greater sense of structure. But for this week, make sure that you're working on the scale-based stuff because that's where I think everybody should start. All right, that's going to do it for this week, everybody. Please go and check out the Inner Circle. Check out what you get for that $5 a month. We really, really need your support. We rely on it to keep the podcast going. So if you listen to this podcast often, please consider that $5 donation. All right, we'll see you for a part 2 on the altered scale next week, everybody. Have a great one.